Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keep the Line Moving, the podcast designed to talk about leadership, life, and inspiration. I am your host, Chris Gargano, and our topic today is resiliency and a book called Surrender to Your Adversity. It was written by Rob Swymer, our guest today, a best-selling author who focuses on coming from a place of gratitude each and every day. Some of his other core principles are continuous learning, continuous improvement, and comfortable being uncomfortable. This conversation will inspire you because in addition to servant leadership, we will talk about mental health, and Rob will share tools to become more resilient. There is a lot to take away from this conversation. I hope you agree. It begins now with Rob Swymer on Keep the Line Moving. All right, Rob, it's great to see you. It's great to have you on the podcast. You know, I look at people's bios here. Yours is really long. And we've had some pretty esteemed guests on this podcast, but I'm going to ask you, would you like to be introduced as an author or a senior executive at a tech company? Tell me how you would prefer it.
Yeah, it's so crazy, Chris. You're right. I wear so many hats. It depends on the audience and who I'm speaking to. But I'm be introduced as both. I happen to be a sales leader in high tech for, over 42 years now. But in my spare time, I happen to write a book. I wrote a book about overcoming adversity, and it's reflected on my life. So I've kind of done both. So, however the listeners want to relate to me, I'm here to serve them in any way.
And I love that. And that's the mission of the podcast. And you and I have talked in preparation for today about the importance of servant leadership.
Yeah.
But before we get to your philosophies and all, Rob, how would you describe yourself at this stage in your life on a daily basis? Your mission, when you wake up in the morning, what drives you?
So what drives me really is being a mental health disruptor. And what I mean by that is my passion and mission right now globally is to make mental health a normal conversation and make sure people understand that it's okay not to be okay, and to really serve yourself and get self-care part of your life. And I'll tell you, we are suffering as all of us humans, if you will, are suffering out there in different ways. And it's always been sort of a stigma to it. So my passion and mission, Chris, is real simple. Normalize the mental health discussion.
So let's tell folks about you and your story, the 42 years of experience, the great success that you've had. I've really appreciated and enjoyed getting to know you, but that's me. Now you tell everybody about your journey, please.
Yeah, my journey was an interesting one, and that's really what settled me into writing the book when I was stationed over in London for my company. I had some adversity in my life, Chris, and what I did is I reflected on my life when I was over in London, and I said, how am I going through this adversity and still being able to thrive? So I am a person that has conquered addiction. I have conquered depression, suicidal ideation. I've lost a loved one, my wife of 32 years, suddenly of a brain aneurysm 10 years ago. And that event shook me and rocked me, but it also changed my perspective. What I mean by that, for all those people listening, is, I want you to think about this for a minute. Don't close your eyes if you're driving, but if you're sitting there, close your eyes and think about an event in your life that rocked you. It could be business, it could be personal, but imagine, sort of what were you thinking? Who were you with? And how did it rock you? And what was going on in your mind? And then ask yourself the question that I asked: can that one event change your perspective? It did for me. It really did. And Chris, it really rocked me to a point where I started to reflect on my life to say, well, first of all, how did I get through this? How did I not drink again? How did I not go into depression? And how did I actually thrive after that life event? So I went through this process of personal development. I believe we all need to be a student of our game, if you know what I mean. And so I became a student of my game. I went inward and I really started to look at, what is my why? Why am I here? And how was I able to really get through some of these life events that rocked me and get stronger each time? And it came down to resilience. So I became really a resilience coach, talking about how to use adversity for an advantage, to lean into it, and to build that resilience muscle. Now, for you sports fans, you go to the gym and you lift weights and you get strong. I believe we need to go to the mental gym. And that mental gym is what builds that resilience muscle. And that's what I did. So I reflected on that, and I tell my story in my book, but I also map out a blueprint of 3 steps to overcome adversity, conquer adversity, and not just survive, but thrive. And I do that with the lessons that I've learned. And it's funny, I was doing it as a child and not even realizing it. I was building up that resilience muscle. But when I got older and really started to look at it, and again, be a student of my game, is when I came up with this blueprint. And now I am passing it on to the world to get that message out to say, hey, it's 3 steps. Not easy. There's a lot of work, Chris. But if you take these 3 steps, I guarantee you won't just survive, you'll thrive.
You just brought up a great point there, and thank you so much for sharing. That's very personal, and thank you for sharing that story. But what you just brought up there is so important for folks to hear, in my opinion, which is to do the work, right? And you
Yeah.
said you started as a child, right? You had some adversity as a child, and that built up, let's call it your resiliency muscle, right? And then your wife passes away suddenly with an aneurysm. You write the book, Surrender to Your Adversity. So I'm leaving out a lot in between, but what you said is there was addiction, there was depression, there was some serious events going on potentially in your life, but you were able to do the work.
Yeah.
How, Rob, were you able to do the work? Because not everybody
I
is
know.
resilient. So,
Yeah.
what is the mechanism that you used, or the person or people that helped you realize you got to work to get to where you want to go to sustain a life and to sustain your life?
So I know you're going to be on board with this, and that is multiple mentors and in all walks of life. There is no way you can do this alone. Being a lone wolf for your mental health or for your personal development doesn't work. You can listen to all the podcasts and all the TED Talks you want, but you need a mentor. You need somebody that can understand you and work with you. And these mentors can be all walks of life. I have what they call reverse mentors, where I go to the millennials and the X Gen and I talk to them as well. Am I on the right track? Is my language correct? So reaching out and getting help, again, that's self-care we talked about at the beginning. That's how you get this done. That's the work you need to do, just to reach out and get that help any way you can and any way you define it. Everybody's different. But for me, I reached out, I got mentors. I started to really dig in to my game. I got involved with Tony Robbins. He became a mentor of mine. I continue to travel with him and be involved in his inner circle. It's an amazing family, but that's just one aspect of my mentoring. I talk to people all over the world, and I'm a sponge. I want to know, am I on the right track? How am I doing? How are you doing? Those are the other things that help. The next thing that helps is getting out of yourself and helping others. And I live a life of serving. That's my mission. I want to serve others. I am a servant leader and I am a servant of others. And that's what drives me every day when I get up. Who can I help today? Who can I influence today? Who can I impact today for better? So when I put my head on the pillow, I've done something good for somebody or someone.
You know what I love that you said? I got to tell you that you have mentors, reverse mentors. You have
Yeah.
traditional mentors, which are folks, and as we're saying now, everybody's visualizing most likely an older, sage, wisdom filled person that gives us advice. That's the traditional perspective of one having with a mentor. You said reverse mentors, people that are younger, millennials, Gen Z, right? That's so valuable. We can learn from everyone, and not, and Rob, here's what I'm hearing you say, but I'm going to let you say it. Not every mentor is going to tell you things you want to hear. It's not always a nurturing, because sometimes we don't need that. We need something to push us or to guide us or to have us see things differently. But you say it. You're the one living it, and I think it's fascinating, and I appreciate that notion so much.
Well, look, there's always another level. Right? There's always another level to go. You know that. And I'll tell you what, you don't get to that next level unless you push. The other thing is the growth mindset. We talk about that in business all the time. Being comfortable, being uncomfortable is one of the aspects of a growth mindset. And being teachable, being coachable, right? How many athletes have you worked with that may not be on the scale of 10 for ability, but man, are they coachable and they thrive. Eventually they get to that level. And those are the people you want to work with. So be coachable, have a life of learning. And there's no way you can't get to the next level if you have that mindset. I talk about it all the time. It's a top-down solution. It's all about the mindset. Everything is about the mindset. And you certainly know that in your business.
No, and I appreciate that. And I'm giving a talk later next week, right? And it's
Yeah.
about that. And the first question I'm going to ask them is, do you want to learn? Are
Yeah.
you open to change? and talk about that in your what you're doing now. Now tell everybody about your day job at Splunk, because I think this is fascinating, and your title's fascinating, what you do is fascinating. Let you go ahead and tell everybody what I have deemed as being very interesting.
Yeah, I love this job. I love what I do. It's not a job for me. It's a mission and a passion, and it's my life. It really is. And so, in my career of over 4 decades, I stepped back from running the business and sales for high tech, and I wanted to give back. I wanted to contribute. I wanted to serve others. So I became a global leadership coach and developer. So I work with all the leaders here at this company, Splunk, and on a global basis, and I coach them and I mentor them. And I pass on the skills that I've learned, the do's and don'ts of leadership. And I try to impart the wisdom of servant leadership, of leading with empathy, leading with love. We don't say these things in business, but I'll tell you what, when you do that, it really makes a difference. When you're authentic and you're in front of your team, I teach that so often. And be authentic, lead with empathy, and lead with a servant leadership mindset. And that is to give versus get. Go into every relationship, every conversation, every customer interaction to give and not get. And the universe is going to reward you. I did that. I pivoted. Again, I talked about that life event that changed my perspective. Before that, I was the guy chasing the deal. I was the guy that was worried about the money. I was the guy that was worried about the next paycheck, the next deal. When can I close the next deal? Not about the customer and the impact I can have. How are they going to be different, better, more productive after they met me? And that event rocked my life, and my perspective changed. When I went in to give versus get, let me tell you a great story, Chris. I'll divert for a second. This is really cool stuff.
Please.
40-year career. The last 9 years, I've amassed more wealth, more deeper human loving connections, had more success than the 30 years combined. See what I'm saying? This is real stuff. And the impact on my life was monumental. And, it wasn't like I was sitting around for the last 30 years either. I was coming up the ladder. I was doing well. But the last 9 years was monumentally different because I changed that perspective and I became a servant to others, a life of giving. That's what you want. And when you do that, what happens is everybody that interacts with you, we're like a magnet, and they're going to come to you in a different way. They're going to feel you in a different way. And you have to have the guts to do that as a leader, whether it's sports or business, entertainment, wherever you are. If you have that perspective, I'm here to tell you that it works. I lived it and breathed it, and now I'm passing that lesson on. Be a giver, not a getter, and the universe is going to reward you tenfold.
Here's a question that I will challenge the notion,
Yeah.
just so we can include everyone. I love this podcast to be inclusive with the audience. Yeah. There are people listening right now, and they're thinking, that's all well and good, but I need to go into work today. And to your point, in the early part of your career, the first 30 years, get the sale done, get the numbers up, make sure I'm hitting this, make sure I'm achieving that. And they get tunnel vision, and that's how they measure their success. They justify it by, I'm going to make a good living. I'm going to come home, put my kids through college. I don't care. I don't know what he's talking about with the servant leadership. But what's respectfully, the one thing you may be leaving out is you can be a servant mentality, a servant leader. That doesn't mean you lay down like a rug and have people walk on you. There's a balance between being assertive, between being kind, between getting things done, having difficult conversations, but still embodying the servant leadership. How do you talk to people about that in your 42 years of a career?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you're so right. So I sum it up with, you want swagger with humility, right? You want to make sure that you have that confidence and conviction behind what you're doing for a living. But it all does come back to, Chris, is that, are you doing the right thing? Are you working the right job? Are you in the right career? Are you passionate about it? What is your why? Why are you doing what you're doing? And that also drives your servant leadership principles. Now, of course, you don't sacrifice the success of the business. I work for a public company, obviously, that I'm driven by the success of that company and the stock price and all the things that our investors are looking for. Absolutely. But it's a mindset. And it doesn't mean that everything you do, every decision you make is that, but it's a mindset of how you go into the day and how you go into your interactions with people. And what I found was if I had that mindset, everything else lined up. I still was driven, of course. I still was trying to, wanted to get that deal and I wanted to be successful. But if I had the mindset of really looking at how can I have impact? How can I have real impact on what I'm doing, the products, the services that I'm providing? That other stuff did come. It did come. And it's really a top down. Like I said, it's a mindset issue. But the other stuff you absolutely have to have. Of course, if you're a professional athlete, you've got to have that drive. You've got to have that commitment and that focus. All those things are what I may call table stakes. What I'm trying to bring to the table is if you take the table stakes and just look at the other side of the equation, add a little bit of this, and you're going to be much more productive.
So, Rob, let's look at this. I love what you're painting here. You're painting a picture, like your interaction. So that's where you took me. So here's what I'm saying to you. It's not just the macro. So somebody might, have a header here and it says servant leadership. And this grand, overwhelming concept.
Yeah.
But what you're saying, and what I also believe and have learned and have researched and have studied and have hopefully lived, it's the micro. It's those small moments when somebody walks in your office or you're walking by somebody, to have that servant leadership mentality in the micro moments, saying hi to someone, being polite, being respectful. So when you have mentors or reverse mentors, as you were saying, what are those micro moments like that they know they can trust you to be that servant leader?
So here's a great, while you were saying that, I was thinking about a story, and I've got a couple of things going through my head, but when I was over in London, I was group vice president of sales, and I had a lot of people under my charge that I didn't even get to meet because of the pandemic. We got there 3 weeks before the pandemic, so my entire 2-year assignment was behind a screen like this. So I had to make human connections. I met a few people, obviously, and made some connections, but so many I didn't meet. But I would call a sales rep, for example, maybe 4 levels down from me, and I would just call it to the blue. And that rep would, obviously the first thing they would do goes, "Oh my God, I'm working on this, I'm working on that. Things are going great. I'm doing it." And I would stop them and I would say, "Wait a second. I just called to tell you that I appreciate you. I know you're working hard, and I want you to know that I appreciate everything you're doing for the company. And if there's anything I can ever do for you, I'm here for you." That's all I would do. 3 minutes. It would change their whole mindset. It would change their state. It would change the way they view the company and the culture. And I was authentic. Now, when I got off that call, I did get what I needed. They did talk a little bit about the deals. They did talk a little bit about themselves, which was exactly what I was trying to get to. Make sure they're okay, and make sure that they've got the right job, that they're passionate and that they're inspired and they're empowered. But so many times leaders call and they just want to know the business. They just want to know how things are. What's the status? When's it going to happen? And all I'm saying is once in a while, call up and just say you appreciate them. Just say that you are thankful for what they're doing for the company. If leaders can do just that one thing, if there's one thing you can do to change tomorrow, call one of your staff and say, "I just appreciate you. Just want to let you know that." Now, I'm a student of what they call physical intelligence, which is the mind and the body, and how words affect the hormones that run through our body. So I know when I say that to somebody, it releases endorphins, it releases serotonin, which is the love hormone, the belonging hormone, the common mission and vision, all that. So I know when I say that, it releases that hormone, and it decreases the serotonin, the cortisol, which is the fight or flight, right? And I know that because I study that. So as a leader, I bring that into the leadership principles when I mentor leaders. The words, the actions, they all have effect on the people under our charge as leaders. And we need to be aware of that.
Let's unpack one thing you said that is key here.
Yeah.
So again, hypothetically, somebody listening to this, right, is thinking, I quote unquote, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time. I got to get right to the nuts and bolts of the issue with the employee, not issue, but what their goals are, what the deals, as you said, or whatever the quote unquote business is. And I'm saying quote unquote business because that's not what we're talking about. What you said is if you say some words of appreciation, and quite frankly, I think you exaggerated respectfully a little bit because you said it takes 3 minutes. It doesn't take 3 minutes. What you said probably took 12 seconds. It's just like that. Hey, Rob, I really appreciate what you do for the organization. It's great to
Yeah.
see you today. I can't wait to hear your update. That's about
Yep.
9 to 10 seconds. That's it. I do the
Yep.
same thing with my coaching and consulting. I do the difference between how you're going to open a meeting, how you're going to open a one-on-one, the difference between that genuine appreciation or, hey, how's it going? Let's get to business. Hey, yeah, no, I got to go to a lunch. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
Right? That, what you're
Right.
saying, how
Yep.
words go into our brains and how we have a physical and emotional reaction. I
Exactly.
applaud you for bringing that up today. I think it's so valuable, Rob. I really do.
I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it in action. And, I took a real big risk when I went to London to be my authentic self. I was an American. I didn't know anybody over there, not a soul. My wife and I went, and I took the risk to be authentic and to lead like this. And the results were staggering. And I will tell you that you may say you don't have the time. I challenge everyone that you make the time, because in the long run, it's going to pay off. It's going to pay off in spades for you. And you will then have people under your charge that will be able to do things you never thought was possible. And isn't that what we're trying to do? We're trying to make people better under us. We're trying to make sure they get to the right next level. Well, how do you do that? I'm giving you some tidbits of what I've done that will work if you apply them. And you don't have to do 100 things, do 1 or 2 little things, and you'll see a massive difference. And then you build upon that.
So you mentioned this earlier in our conversation, and this kind of all this, we can tie this all together
Yeah.
about being a continuous learner. And
Yeah.
you mentioned that you've worked with Tony Robbins, and you've mentioned that you've done the work. You've got mentors up, mentors down, mentors across.
Yeah.
So you've obviously done the work. But for someone wondering, how do I get started in understanding my emotional intelligence, the physical link to the emotional intelligence, and all the wonderful concepts you brought forward here today, how would they get started? You mentor people all the time in your business. That's how we
Yeah.
met. We have a
Yeah.
wonderful common friend who
Yeah.
recommended you, and she's fantastic, and she's really benefiting from your mentorship. Let me ask you, how do they get started?
Well, I think that everybody that can, if you have the means to get a life coach, I think it's very important to do that. I'm not talking about a psychologist or a therapist. I'm talking about a life coach, which is somebody that can guide you and guide you in what your true purpose is and help you through that, and also be able to suggest different avenues for you to go to, whether it's a mentor seminar, a podcast, or a TED talk. You need somebody to be your guide. So, and there are a number of them that are available, and they're everywhere, right? You just have to kind of go through that process of deciding which life coach is good for you. If you're with a big company, go to your HR department and ask for an executive coach, ask for a life coach. They will have those resources. My company did, and I'm sure your company does as well. Seek that out. Local chapters in your city or state. There are resources available as well for that. So I would just start to look at those resources and start to gather the information and find a good fit for you, and then it'll come to you. Also, I know this is I feel like I'm this sales leader of in high tech that has given you some crazy concepts, but they worked for me. And I also meditate on this stuff, and I put it out into the universe, and I manifest a lot. And what I mean by manifesting is I visualize the way my life is going to be, whether it's a week from now, yes, tomorrow, or whether it's 5 years from now or 10 years from now. I meditate and visualize and manifest that life. And that works for me. And I can't tell you the hundreds of times that it's come to fruition. And it's amazing to be in the moment at that time and go, I manifested this, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, last week. So I would say that, get some time alone, reflect. I tell people to live a dog's life, no distractions, just be you, be with you, and manifest and think about where you want to be and how's that going to make you feel, who are you going to be with, what are you going to be doing, and all that visualization, it comes back to you. I've lived it. I've seen it hundreds and hundreds and thousands of times. And I tell you, if you've got the open mind to do these kinds of things, that's my mission, is to tell people it's okay. It's going to work.
All right, Rob, we're going to the all-star moments right now. You ready for this?
Sure. What do you got?
Fun. All right, these are 6 quick questions. I'm going to ask you a 7th because I'm going to put you on the spot. You've lived a good life. You're ready to tackle these. And just first thought, best thought, okay? You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
You look nervous.
No.
Okay, here we go. It's easy.
Bring it on.
All right, my friend. Here we go. Number 1, how do you deal with adversity?
Lean in, acknowledge, accept, thank it, and then assess your options. Pull back and move forward. Those are the 3 steps.
Boom. 2, how do you give yourself fuel?
I disconnect to reconnect.
Good job. 3, what does never give up mean to you?
It means surrender is to give in, not give up.
4, what is the value of collaboration?
Human connection, life learning, all those things that come with multiple opinions and different perspectives.
5, hiring people. What do you look for in an ideal candidate?
I analyze their language, their focus, and their physiology. Those 3 things is the triad for me, and that's the triad of influence and how everybody's wired. I want to know what they're focusing on, the future, the past, the present. I want to know what their language is. Are they positive or are they negative? Are they looking to be a learner? And their physiology, how are they showing up? Are they got swagger with humility? Have they got confidence and conviction in their beliefs? Those are the things I look for.
Wow. Nice. 7, what is the difference between manager and leader?
Well, everything we just talked about. A manager is a person that can be behind the scenes with a spreadsheet, managing the numbers, managing the business, if you will, managing how the business is run. A leader is one that empowers and inspires those under their charge to get to the next level and be the best version of themselves, ultimately making that leader the best version of themselves.
Fantastic. I really sincerely appreciate it, Rob.
I had a blast. And I can't thank you enough. And it's been my pleasure to serve you and your listeners. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be that disruptor and maybe put a little bit of some ideas into some people's minds to do something a little different. A little bit.
And we thank Rob very much for being on the show. As far as takeaways today, I have 3 of them. Number 1, seek out knowledge. Find a way to take advantage of the resources at your company or business, from an HR standpoint to continuous learning, whatever the programs are, or continuous education that they may have. Go after it. Make it part of your life. According to Rob, it will get you to where you want to be. Also, mentors. Find a mentor, older, somebody right around your age, and then somebody younger. Learn from everybody, all the cohorts that you come in contact with every day. I thought that was a fantastic point also by Rob. And then finally, with mental health, ask for help. Don't try to do it on your own was his message. Seek out help. Very valuable. I'm so glad he brought it up in addition to the well-rounded conversation I hope you agree that you just heard. For our podcast producer, Paul Salazar, I am Chris Gargano. I thank you each and every week for being part of this. We'll see you next time, everybody, with another great guest on Keep the Line Moving.
We thank you for listening to Keep the Line Moving. We would love it if you subscribed or left a review. For more podcast episodes, check out our YouTube page. If you'd like to work with the Gargano Leadership Group, check out our website. This has been a GLG production, copyright 2023. For our podcast producer, Paul Salazar, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwal. Have a great week, everyone.